Hi, I'm Raj, and you're watching Rapport. First, understanding, then adjustment. Now, adopting this philosophy in life can actually help our society to progress. There are so many issues that hold deep stigma and that needs to change so that everyone can benefit. One topic that really faces a lot of hush hush around it is menstruation, getting your period, which is actually the reason why all of us exist. So, here to dispel some of the stigma and also to take us through the harsh concept of period poverty is Danielle. Welcome, Danielle.
Hi, it's so nice to be on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to host you, Danielle. And let's delve a little into why periods or even speaking about them holds such a stigma in society. What are your thoughts?
I think that this has just been such a stigma from years and years and years ago, and I think nobody has done enough to change that. Women have now got such strong voices. The younger generation have been unbelievable in trying to make these changes, and I think that with time and with the older generation's help, even though we were like, don't tell anyone and hide your products and don't have them out on display in the bathroom. It's my bathroom. I'm in my own house. They should be out on display. But my mothers weren't, and her mothers weren't, and her mothers weren't. And I think we just need to break the cycle and normalize it for once and for all from this generation going forward. So all future generations have just got it much easier. And I think with these young women and their strong voices that are coming out, I think it's all going to change, and it's very exciting to see the changes.
Now, something you touched on is that the older generation didn't talk about it, or that you need to hide whatever you were using. And we see this even today with many people, even in my generation, feeling that same sort of shame around having their period, feeling that there's something to be hidden. And of course, we see how the male population reacts if an advert for a pad comes on the TV and they're changing the channel or feeling like this is so disgusting. But the reality of it is that so much of information and education gets lost in this hush hush business. We have not just men who don't understand what periods are. We also have women and girls, menstruators, in fact, who don't have a full understanding of what having your period is or what this is like. And we also see how in society, if a woman is being loud or exerting herself, um, she is viewed as being aggressive. And the common thing is, oh, are you on your period? Which is actually a way in which the patriarchy suppresses women. So you're meant to stay in your place. And as you mentioned, the new generation does not believe in staying in their lane when it comes to issues that are important to them. Now, Danielle, you are actually at the forefront of an evolution in period products in South Africa. Tell me more about how this came about and where you're at now.
So I was away on holiday with my daughter, and she was 11. She just turned 11 and she got her period. So we were not, I know a lot of younger girls are getting their period earlier and earlier, and we were not prepared. We hadn't even had the discussion, and we actually both got such a fright. So even my husband said, change your face. You can't look so shocked and frightened. I said, I can't help it. This is my face. It doesn't change. We just were so unprepared, which is also, I mean, I'm a woman. I shouldn't be unprepared. I know it's coming. I just didn't realize it would come at 11. So we actually went to a few different stores. I have just been buying the same old boring products, which I don't even like, but it's just what I've done. And I thought there must by now, for my own daughter, be this amazing new teenage range of all different products available. And I was so excited. And I got to the first store and I'm like, oh, no, there's nothing here. Oh, don't worry, let's stay calm. We'll go to another store. Anyway, 3 stores later, I've realized that she actually is going to be using the same old boring products that I didn't love or trust, but we don't have a choice. And I bought her tampons are not an option for young girls. It's all new and it's too hard. Some for religious reasons, some they're just too young, and it was not even a thought. So we bought pads. The pads are thinner than in my day, and they've got wings, and that's the only thing that's changed. But they were still leaking. So we would go out and put the pad. I had to teach her how to put a pad on, which I also didn't realize. Young girls don't even know how to stick it on their panties, which is also quite sad, which I didn't realize.
This is something, and you've touched on it, and I love that you've mentioned it, because it's so quieted down. Young menstruators have no idea how to even use these products. And like you've said, the positioning of a pad on underwear, if you don't know how to do that, disaster will follow. And this is also why even the options of things like tampons or menstrual cups are so scary, because most younger people are not familiar with their bodies. And if something like a pad can be difficult to navigate, how would they navigate other options? Yeah, please go on.
Yeah. So we would go out for the day, and she was in white shorts, and I'd say, we need to go to the bathroom. It's time to change your pad. She said, how do you know? I said, I can see it. And I thought maybe I bought the wrong ones. We bought other kinds, and they kept leaking. They were leaking at night onto the sheets. Every morning she'd call me and say, we have to change the sheets before anyone sees. And she'd panic and I'd panic. My whole reaction was completely not the right reaction. I should have been calm and said, it's fun, which it took me a few months, and I am fine. And everybody in my house is all fine, because everything's lying everywhere out for display. And then I've actually started telling her how to wear the pad and how to check your skirt or your pants if you're out, because pads leak. So just make sure you always have a jersey to tie around your waist, or you can ask a friend to check your skirt. And it was making no sense to me all these years later. It was making no sense all these years later that I'm telling my own daughter to do the same things I did at school. And I was heartbroken for her.
So much of what you've mentioned is so incredibly relatable. I think any menstruator, any person that's gotten their period has gone through this of you're out and you've got to be so cautious, and how are you sitting and how are you standing and how are you lying down, waking up in a puddle and being worried. And I think your reaction, you said that since then it's adapted, but when this started out, I think your reaction was quite fair from the time that you had learned about periods and menstruation, because this was the norms. It was you always carry a spare jersey even to school, because if someone sees, are they going to make fun of you? And kids have more than enough to deal with. They don't need to have that additional stress. And as you mentioned, I think this is something that doesn't get spoken about, is that pads do leak. And you can put it on properly, but that doesn't mean that accidents don't happen. Very scary things.
Especially at night time. If you also not like a sleeper, which my daughter's not, we just sleep still the whole night, tosses and turns the whole night. And it's just, especially at night time, they just kept leaking. And I was very upset for her, because these pads were longer than what I had, and they had wings, and I thought they must be trustworthy, but unfortunately they weren't. So I had to keep looking for an answer. I just wanted to help my own daughter. I wasn't looking to help anybody. I just wanted to have my daughter, who was one of the first in her year at school, to not have to stress or be concerned in any way. So I kept researching until I eventually found these life-changing period panties.
Now, this has not been something that was available in South Africa. The idea of menstrual underwear is still quite new. And in South Africa, it was, I think, a pipe dream until you came about with this innovation. Walk me through the process of developing underwear that could be trusted to be used during periods.
So I was actually doing I did more online research than a thesis for university. because now this is my child, and you just, as a mother, want your kids to be happy and confident and comfortable. So it was like a thesis. I started importing a few. They were very expensive. I liked the idea behind them. I like the idea of the cups, but it was not an option. It's still not an option. Maybe one day in the far, far future, it might be. Personally, I'm nervous of them. We're all nervous. But the fact that there are reusable things out there to help the environment was a wake-up call for me, because I didn't realize that finally there are things that exist we don't have to use. I mean, one pad has got a plastic outside wrapper, plastic inside wrapper. Then you rip off the plastic one part, and then each little wing has got another little plastic. And I had a pile of plastic in my hand this big before. That was for one pad, and one packet doesn't last one girl, one period. So it was all just very overwhelming until I got quite a few different brands imported to us, but they were very expensive to get here, and they were actually quite expensive as it is. I do understand why there's specialized fabrics. There's a lot of fabrics. You want good quality. You cannot compromise on quality when it comes to the inside fabrics, because otherwise they won't work. But the ones I had gotten for her were all wrong. So the one was a very famous brand, but the crutch was the only absorbent part. The crutch was also very hard and bendy. It wasn't soft and comfortable, didn't fit your body, and it felt like there was cardboard inside. There wasn't. It was just a very stiff fabric. Another brand, which was soft and comfortable, was leaking behind the crutch. So the other pair looked like underpants. My daughter said, I'm not even trying on boys' underpants. They were very masculine. They weren't feminine. They weren't soft and silky. And so putting all of these many different pairs together, I was cutting them all open and seeing which ones work and why they work and what makes them comfortable with the fabrics that will work. Until I put a whole lot of different ideas together and came up with the confidence period panties. But at this point, it was still only for my daughter. I want to help my child be happy. If I can change her life, I'll just be happy with that. So that was where I started. Then once I realized what these panties did for her, I actually thought, I cannot be selfish. I need to help all these other girls. It's not fair. And that's how it started turning into a business to help other girls.
I think every issue that you encountered along this journey was something that so many could relate to. Even in the context of design, if it's just the gusset that's absorbent, any menstruator will tell you that sitting back or lying down, that doesn't work. It needs to be longer, it needs to be softer, it needs to be more durable. And like you mentioned, in the previous times, in your generation and those who came prior to me, the products were very thick. They were very thick, they were uncomfortable, and you're going through more than enough discomfort as it is. There's pain, there's cramping, bloating, nausea, all that jazz. And so having an option that can sort of take away some of that discomfort, I think makes a really big difference. Now, you started this out just to help your own child, and you're taking it a lot further than that. Tell me about the confidence range and all that goes with it.
So we decided to make, and all with my little daughter at home, who was my best guinea pig I could ask for, because with her, I saw what worked, what didn't work. If she doesn't like it, then I wasn't going for it, because it was mainly her age group I was targeting initially, until I realized there's so many women out there of all ages that are desperate, even though they've been using and are used to the products that are available. There's a whole market of women who are also just not happy with the way they work and just the uncomfortableness. Also, because we don't always know when we are getting our periods. So 1 month we're regular and the next month we're not regular. To waste all that plastic and those pads and the money every single day, and to be in those uncomfortable pads every day, day after day, because it might come today and you don't want to go to school or work, and then you get your period and you're on a taxi or a bus or in a lift scheme or at school, and then what do? You got to check the seat every time. So these pads were becoming every day, just in case, and all that wasting in plastic and money down the drain because you didn't get it the whole week, but you've been using them the whole week for just in case. So that was also...
The environmental aspect of it is something that's so often overlooked because there was not much of a choice. There was not much of a choice in terms of anything else.
Yes.
And even the fact that there's so much of plastic waste coming from existing sanitary products, it was also the fact that if it wasn't that, people were using rags, sand in socks, leaves. And there's an additional layer to this which impacts health. Then you're looking at infection. You're looking at people having allergic reactions. You're looking at toxic shock syndrome. And that is why having something that takes care of the environment also takes care of the person that needs to use this product. And that is such a huge deal.
So we've got we have the boy short panties, which are more brief style for the older ladies who prefer the briefs, or for the younger girls who are going to sleep over, and there are a whole lot of girls sleeping at a friend's house and they don't want to leak. Also, the absorbent part goes all the way up to the back. And as a young girl, even though we all need to run out to the world and be proud that we have our period, it means everything's working, you're normal, your body's functioning beautifully. It's such a good sign, yet young girls are still embarrassed and shy. So the nice thing about these is that they're not those panties where everyone sees, oh, I've seen those panties, those are the period ones. No, they're black panties. No one sees when you're changing for PT or for dancing at school, at a friend's house for sleepover, that you have got the period panties on, because they look like normal panties. We also have them in cotton, which is the bikini panties, which a lot of the younger girls also like to wear, the bikini ones. They're nice because they fit under a leotard quite nicely without anybody seeing them. So there's no side wings of a pad sticking out, there's no leaking, and they fit under leotard beautifully for ballet or stage, like we landed up on stage. And with the bright light and the period panties, nothing else, you couldn't see, you didn't know, the whole day without changing, no leaking, they worked amazingly. And then we've got the lycra ones, which are just soft and silky, but the inside of the lycra ones are also cotton. So any part that's touching your body on the inside is all cotton. So some people say they only like cotton to be touching them, but it is cotton on the inside. The nice thing about these is that if you are wearing a black leotard and by mistake it rises up a little bit, this underneath is also black lycra. So it's soft and silky, it's comfortable, but you won't know that it's not like a big white pad sticking out. And the reason I kept it black was for my daughter's own use of panties that we had tried from overseas that were cream. And when there was leaking, it was behind onto the cream, and it was quite frightening. She phoned me to fetch him from school because it's with black, it's just, you don't know, you don't like, young girls panic. It feels like a lot coming out initially, which it's completely normal. But with these black ones on the inside, you don't see, it's not a fright, it's not a shock. You don't even know if it's a lot or a little. You just carry on with your life, and that's all I wanted. I wanted her to just carry on with her life.
Now, Danielle, the design of this really sees to more than one need, not just the absorbency, but how far up on the front and the back. And I know of young women who would at one time need 3 pads, one for the gusset, one for the front, and one for the back because of leaking happening. And you've removed the need for this by ensuring that the absorbent layer goes all the way up the front, all the way up the back. And if you could just hold them up and show me the thinness, because I think that's something that's so important, how thin and soft they are, because in prior times, pads used to be up to 4 centimeters thick, it's about this thick, and that's ridiculous. And so having something as thin as your normal underwear, phenomenal.
So we used to put a new pad on and walk outside the classroom and walk like a waddle, like a duck first, until it like molds into the shape in between your legs. It was like the squash, and until it went like squishy into the shape of your legs. They were very thick and uncomfortable. These are very thin. I don't know if you can see nicely. They are very thin, but using patented technology that will ensure the thinnest fabric inside possible, but without leaking. So the panties are patented. They are a unique design. They are unique fabrics inside. I had to source the fabrics. Nothing was easy. But the whole point was it was not to feel like wearing a nappy. You don't want these young women and ladies and young girls to feel like a big, bulky nappy. These are very thin, they're just, a friend of mine wore them. She said, I thought I was in my period panties. I was in normal black panties, and I went out for the day and I was leaking, and I didn't realize that I had my normal black panties on. She said, you know that your panties just feel like my normal black panties. I said, yes, that's the point. Check the label.
Check the label, please. If you're wearing them, check the label. Make sure you've got the right ones on at the right time.
The right
But
ones.
we know what you've mentioned now, especially in school. I think everyone felt very self-conscious when it sounded like plastic bags in motion, because walking around wearing those usual pads, and even when it comes to removing those back layers for the stickiness, sometimes those would tear. And if that was the only pad you had, what were you going to do?
Yes.
And so I think
Exactly.
that you've negated a lot of the stress and worry, and you've now taken it such that it's no longer just for the younger girls, for those who are newly getting their periods, because they go all the way up to size 40.
Yes, they do. And also the nice thing is, like you said, when you take a pad to the toilet with you and something happens to it and you can't use it, there's also the other side of that, which is going to the toilet with hiding one tampon up your sleeve and hiding it in your jersey and sneaking to the toilet, and then you put it in and it's uncomfortable and it doesn't feel right and it's a little bit skew. So now it's really not comfortable, because if it's not at the exact angle it's supposed to be, it's not the most comfortable. So you think, I can't walk around like this, and you take it out and now that's gone. Now you've got nothing. So you had to go to the toilet with a few up your sleeve just in case.
And I think something that people often don't take into consideration is how expensive these products are. You walk into any grocery store or pharmacy, and you're going to encounter the sheer cost. And as you mentioned earlier, one pack of pads is not sufficient for your average menstruator's entire cycle. Some need
Yes.
3 or 4 packs. And that can really add up in terms of cost. Now, when we speak about the period underwear that you've created, how long can they last? Because if the pricing at the moment, if I'm not mistaken, is about 200 rand, right? 199. And a lot of people would want to know cost-wise, how does this work out? Tell me how long these period underwear will last your average menstruator.
So you do need more than one pair. They range between 199 to to 249 rand. And also you just hold them under water, let the water run until it runs clear, and you put in the washing machine. If you have to hand wash them like I did on holiday, that's also fine. Then you do not tumble dry them. And if you follow the washing instructions, they can last for many years. My daughter's on the 3rd year of using them and they are perfect. We have had no issues. The quality is excellent and we've had no issues with these. The fact that one packet of pads doesn't last one girl, one period is very sad, and I wish that somehow these menstrual products could be in girls' bathrooms for free, and this shouldn't even be an issue for them. But that's a whole nother show.
I think, as you've mentioned, the fact that it's easy to clean these options, to have them available, and as you mentioned, lasting for years. So, an average 5 years with, let's say, 2 or 3 pairs of underwear, which is, I think, more than how long normal underwear lasts the average person. So, definitely a
Yeah.
worthwhile investment. And for those who are wondering how long they can wear it, when we discussed this, you mentioned that it could be maybe even 8 or 12 hours depending on the flow, and only when it feels damp. It won't leak, but that is
Yeah.
only the time when you would change it.
Yes, so I think that depends on a lot of things. It depends on what kind of flow you have. It depends on the day. Maybe the first few days are heavier and the last few days are lighter. So the first few days you might want to change it halfway through the day, like you said, not for leaking, but purely for the fact that it might eventually start feeling wet and uncomfortable. So then you would fold them nicely, and you can, I mean, you don't have to even touch anything. You take them off, you could just fold them up like this, and you can put them in the packet, which is resealable that it comes in, and take this one out and pop it in your bag, and off you go. The lighter days, you could be in these the whole day and you would feel comfortable.
That is truly astounding, especially in a time where toxic shock syndrome is something that is so dangerous. Having that happen to you is so traumatic. And so having an option where you don't have to be mindful of how long you're wearing it, as long as you're still feeling comfortable. I think that's absolutely wonderful. And the fact that your guinea pig was your daughter, I think that made sure that your product was at its finest, because I'm sure she would have not hesitated to tell you if she did not agree with
No,
it.
no, she's got a very big voice and she loves to tell me I don't like this and I do like that. But that's exactly right. It was purely done initially just to help my own daughter. I wanted her to have, from the hard time from day one where we couldn't find the right products, to a few months later to just be happy and comfortable. And just like you said, there's so many things young girls have to worry about. There's just one thing that really in this day and age you shouldn't have to worry about at all. And a friend of hers at school was asking her to check her skirt the whole day. And even though she'd had her period now for 2 years, she didn't know what she was checking for, because she doesn't have to check her own skirt. She came home and said, I don't know what I'm checking for. And I'm going, it's fine, it's fine. But I didn't click until the end of the day. She said, I think I'm supposed to be checking for blood. I said, yes, I think you are. She goes, oh, I didn't know. And I thought, well, that is all I wanted. I just wanted that to not be an issue, because it's a huge issue. And men don't understand that it's a huge issue, and that we have to panic every week, every month, month after month. Is our skirt okay at school? Are our pants okay? If we get off a taxi, do we have to check the seat? If we get off a lift scheme, do we have to check? It's just such an unnecessary stress that young ladies and women don't need anymore. It's 2021. We shouldn't be worrying about this. We shouldn't be worrying about leaking.
I'm 100% with you on this. The fact that it's taken this long for there to be any type of innovation, that makes no sense. As you said, it's 2021, and the products that are available for menstruators now need to cater to what they need. They serve a purpose, and if they can serve that purpose better, then those who need it actually find benefit. And I want to delve a little into the fact that period poverty is such a major reality. Now, not just in South Africa, but around the world, many menstruators don't have access to any type of sanitary products. It can be based on where they live, it can be based on finances, and most recently with the riots, we saw that it was based on situation. There were so many women or menstruators out on social media asking where can we find pads or tampons or anything really, looking at DIY methods, because the current generation is not familiar with what the previous generation had to do, which was using cloth, and those cloths, if they did not dry properly, could cause infection. And as I mentioned earlier, socks with sand or leaves in it, just anything to sort of deal with this time. And this is a cause that's very dear to your heart. Tell me about your charity.
So when I realized that one packet of pads doesn't last my own daughter one period, and the panties, which are more expensive to make because there's more fabric, I was just looking to see what I could use and start developing to help millions and millions of more girls. So I've just started up a charity now called the Forgotten Girls, and I feel like they have been forgotten about, because no one is worrying about their education, or that they miss a week of school every single month, yet they're supposed to come out with the men at the end of high school with the same marks. And it's high school just is so much harder for them if they have to keep missing school. And there was a government tender for 1.1 million rand worth of pads to go to rural schools, and not one girl got one pad, which is very, very sad. And it's not okay. And I'm very upset that more women who have high-powered jobs in government are not helping these girls. And that's why my name, The Forgotten Girls, I feel like it's just exactly what it is. They've been forgotten about, and women are just, we are too okay with this. We are not doing enough. And then when I realized we're not doing enough and I started trying to do more, I realized why we're not doing enough, because it's not really easy and you just keep hitting so many dead ends, and it's very frustrating. But the good news is that because the panties weren't such an option to actually get them cheaper, to get more designed and developed, it's exactly the same, but it's a reusable pad. So you just clip them onto your panties here, and they've got this clip here, and you clip them on, and they're also thin and soft and comfortable. They're not those thick, bulky, reusable pads, yet they have the same fabric inside, so you won't leak. These are a better option because you can just hand wash them and you can hang them up and dry. They will dry quicker. It's not this much fabric that you need to wait. These will dry much quicker. Then, even though they've got the same fabrics inside, they will dry much quicker because there's a lot less fabric. So you've just put them around the panties like that and you clip them on, and then you'll have these reusable pads. So this is just the very, very beginning process. If I could hire a helicopter and just get billions of these and fly over Africa and just drop these down to all the girls, I would. Maybe one day, not giving up. But it's a very frustrating position to be in when you know you've got the product and you know how many people you can help, and you just can't get there like fast enough and to the right girls. And like one girl can have maybe 5 of these, and that's all she'll need till she's finished high school. You won't have to go back to donate pads and more pads and more pads and more pads every single month. And it's a passion that I've fallen in love with, because it was fine for me to go to the store and get my daughter pads, but it's not okay for millions and millions of women whose daughters are coming to them and saying, "Mommy, I've got my period, I need pads," and these mothers can't afford it. And it is heartbreaking.
I think a reality that's really unfortunate is the fact that many times when we're trying to get involved with these charity initiatives, there are men who are dominating this arena, and so they don't see the necessity. They don't see the necessity in period products. They don't see how this impacts
Urgency.
the girl child. Yes.
Urgency.
And if we look at, as you mentioned, in high school, we're going on an average of 1 week, but we also know that most people's menstrual cycles not just 5 days. And then if you've got issues like endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome, which does happen across the board, we're talking about sometimes young women who are bleeding for 2 weeks consecutively. And that means 2 weeks of not being at work, not being at school, because products are out of their reach. And then when you look at the fact that 5 of these pads can last you from grade 6, standard 6, grade 8, from grade 8 to grade 12 until you enter the working world. That, in addition to this, you've mentioned how if you're in a community, one lot of this, just one round at a time. Because in many of these sanitary pad drives, we look at maybe 1 pack for each girl, and then each month that need is still there. But when we opt for an option like this, which is not just environmentally friendly, but it's an investment in that young person. It's an investment in their education, in their time, in their comfort. And we always talk about how education for women has not necessarily been a priority. Around the world, this has been such a vast problem. And when we look at education for a woman, empowers a community, empowers our society. This is why we need to have our young women, our young menstruators in school. We need to have them having every opportunity that their male counterparts have. Because as you mentioned, when they come to the end of high school, they're expected to contend with those who had more time and more opportunities. And that is why this charity, the Forgotten Girls, it's so important. It's so, so incredibly important. And your passion for this as well. What we need is more people to be passionate about the issues in society, whether or not they're directly impacted by it. Because as you mentioned, you could go into a store and buy this for your daughter, but not every mother can.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very sad and heartbreaking, and it's frustrating that we as a society and a country are not looking after everybody. We should be looking after everyone who needs looking after, and to spend a whole week out of school, especially in high school or longer, as you said, is it's so hard to catch up work. It's hard for these girls, and it's just so much extra pressure, and they've totally been forgotten about, and it's very, very sad to see. And places like New Zealand, where there's a lady in charge, and she's made sure that there's no tax on period products and they're available free at schools, and we're just so far away from that, and it's so sad because all these poorer countries should be the first ones who are not taxing these products and who have them available freely in schools. And I think we'll eventually get there, but we're so far behind. And all these countries should be at the front, not at the back of the queue. We should be at the front.
As you've so rightly said, we do need to be at the front of this. We need to be ensuring that no one gets left behind and that no one gets forgotten. And I do also want to touch on one additional point that I noticed about your products, and that is not every menstruator identifies as a woman. Not every person who gets their period manifests or physically looks feminine. And so having products that don't trigger gender dysphoria, all of your products are black, which means they could basically serve as unisex products. If you're a transgender man, if you're a non-binary individual, using the products that Danielle has created and put into the world, it's one less thing for you in a society that you actively have to be fighting against. And Danielle, I want to thank you for that. I want to thank you for the amount of thought and time and effort and energy and passion that has gone into doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you to you for bringing this up and having this conversation, because with more young, beautiful women like you having this conversation, it can only help everybody else. So thank you.
Well, I firmly believe that a society that progresses is one where women support women and women fight for equality. And thank you for doing your bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.